Anyway, just wishing you all a blessed World AIDS Day. Today, I'm going to be talking about my experience working with ViiV Healthcare and my experience with them shipping me all over the country to, yes, inappropriate, to tell my story about living with HIV. So before I get into that, I'll just introduce myself. My name is Carlos, and I am from Tucson, Arizona, but I am coming to you live from Pasadena, California, which is Tongva land. So I just want to acknowledge that, and I want to acknowledge that I am not from here, but I am here in these communities doing everything I can to better the communities in ways that I can. Yes, so World AIDS Day is still a very big thing, just like my shirt says, every day is World AIDS Day, because it's still affecting communities all over the world. So yeah, I'm so bummed out my other account is banned. Like, what the heck is going on? Okay. So I'm gonna dive back a little bit. Sometime in 2016, I want to say, I was working for an organization called the Wall Las Memorias Project, which they're having a really awesome event today from 6 to 7:30. So make sure you check that out. They were the first organization that I started to work for when I moved to Los Angeles, and at the time they were a very small nonprofit, and there was probably about 8 of us working there at the time. And when you're in the HIV field, a lot of pharmaceutical companies will come through and try to give you talks about new medications that are coming out and stuff like that. And one day there was this representative there who came to drop off some materials. So I started to get in contact with this person. I took their contact information and they took mine. And somewhere down the line, I got a call from someone who was like, hey, we remember you and we think that you'd be a perfect fit for this project that we're doing that are called Couch Talks. And I was like, okay, well, tell me more about it. So they started to tell me about what the project was, and ViiV Healthcare, what they do, what they do is they allow folks to share their story about living with HIV. They are a pharmaceutical company, and they're always coming out with new medications. They're always coming out with better medications for people who are living with HIV, and always just making advancements. So when a new medication comes out, they like for someone to go and tell their story. What they do is that they host these big events. They invite all of the AIDS service organizations in the area to invite their clients to these big places that they rent out. They'll rent out a ballroom, they'll rent out a big space to hold a lot of people. And then they would go and they would present about their new medication. And once the pharmaceutical company was finished with their portion of the presentation, they would invite someone who was living with HIV to tell their story. And they chose me to do it. And I went through this whole audition process, I guess you would say. And these were people who were on the opposite side of the country from me at the time. So we did a lot of phone interviews, a lot of Skyping. And we, they asked me a bunch of questions. They asked my story, what it was over the phone, and I told them. So they chose me and they flew me out to, I think it was North Carolina, I want to say, because this was a while. Hi, everyone. This was a while ago, but they flew me out to this training where myself and all the other people that they chose, they would train us on what's going to be happening. Once we're done training, they're going to ship us out to all over the country. So I got to, needless to say, I got to meet so many other people who are living with HIV from all across the country, and we were there at this training to figure out how we could formulate our stories for to broadcast to an audience. So they broke us all apart, and they sent us out with writers. And we worked with a writer. We told the writer our story, and the writer helped write it out for us, because this was something that we were going to have to memorize and speak about for about an hour. And so I worked with a writer, and he helped me write my story. I think Oh, I don't remember his name. Um, but that's what everyone did. We worked on our stories with the writer, and then after that, we were sent back home, and then they were going to start booking dates for us throughout the year, all over the country to go tell our stories. But in between those times, we would have coaching calls. Um, so they called us, before we were going to have a presentation, and we would run through it. And I had a couple of different circumstances, which was pretty cool. So they said, okay, so you have a couple of different skill sets. You have a family member who supports you, which was my mother at the time. So you're gonna do, and you work in the HIV field. So we're gonna allow you to do three different things. We're gonna allow you to go speak out by yourself, and then we're going to allow you to speak with your mother, and then we're going to allow you to speak with providers. So this was something that was very mind-blowing. I was like, oh my god, okay, I'm excited. And we also want you to do this in English and Spanish. And so I was like, fuck, my Spanish is really bad. But so we had my story translated from English to Spanish, and I also had to work with a Spanish coach to help me make sure that I can get through my story, because my Spanish is really horrible. Um, so I did that, and then the time came where I had to go do these things. So they flew me out to Ohio, Texas, New York, San Diego, Los Angeles, um, and a lot of other places that I can't think of off the top of my head right now. Miami. Um, and so the ones that I would do by myself, were the most nerve-wracking, because I was literally completely by myself the entire time. I would get there, they put me up in a hotel, which was not too far from the venue, and then we would have a really quick run through, like a little dress rehearsal, I guess you could say, and then the time came for me to tell my story, which the first couple of times I was so nervous, and I don't know how I got over it, but I do know how I got over it. Is I stood on the podium, and I sort of invoked all of the people who came before me. I was thinking about all these different people getting amped up. I was thinking about all the people that have inspired me and everyone who's gotten me to the moment, which was right then and there. I thought about all the long-term survivors that I had come in contact with who had mentored me. And I thought about all my friends who didn't have the opportunities to do this. I thought about all the people from my hometown, and they were the ones who carried me through getting through all of those speeches. So the ones by myself, I just told my story, and what we did is that they gave us these little cards so that we could practice and have at our speech. So we went through the story, and then for me, the most impactful part of it was that there was always a Q&A portion. So after I was done telling my story, people from the audience would be able to ask me questions. And sometimes these audiences were huge. I'm telling you, like one time it was so big that they had to open up another room and then put a TV screen in the other rooms so that the overflow of people could go in there and watch. Like, it was mind blowing to me, honestly. And for the most part, the crowds were really nice. For the most part, the crowds were very engaging. And my favorite part was when the whole thing was finished, we all got to mingle. People would come up to me and tell me that they have been positive for how many years. They told me that they're not out to their family, they're not out to their friends, they don't know anyone else who's living with HIV, and that some parts of my story resonated with them, and that's really what the whole thing was all about. So. And then the other part of it was when they asked my mom to join me. So I live here in LA, and my mom lives back in Arizona, my hometown where I'm from. And we don't get to see each other maybe but once or twice a year whenever maybe the holidays came around or something like that. So for the entire year, I got to see my mom because they flew her out to the same places that I was being flown out. And then we would meet in these places to give these talks. So during with those situations, my story was maybe cut in half a little bit, and then they gave my mom some time so that she could tell her perspective of as a caretaker, as a parent of someone who's living with HIV and her experience with that, which was, again, once that was done, there's people in the audience who are parents, mothers, fathers, brothers and sisters of people who are living with HIV. And one of the most powerful and impactful things was that other parents would go up and talk to my mom. Like this, that was probably the most impactful for me, was to look out of the corner of my eye and see my mom talking to other parents about their kids living with HIV and how they could do better to support them. That was probably, you know, those were really great moments. And for the times when I had to do the presentations in Spanish, my mom was also there to help correct me with words that I was saying wrong. Also, the crowd did the same thing. Like if I was talking and I couldn't say a word, someone would like scream out, like this word. And so it was just all love all around, which was really amazing. And like I said, it gave us the opportunity to get together because I don't get to see my mom very often. And also, we don't really talk about, HIV a lot. It's kind of a weird topic to talk about with your family. So it opened up doors that, like, yeah, we knew about it, and, yeah, my mom knew and all that stuff, but this opened up a different way, because people from the audience would ask my mom questions that I had never heard her answer before. I had never asked her some of these questions before, and I never knew her true feelings about some of these things until I heard her have to respond to people asking. So those were incredibly powerful moments. The other part of it was when I would have to go and do the presentation with providers. And I don't mean... the providers were also on the panel, but the providers were also the audience. So providers, I would tell my story, and then providers would ask how they can better help serve their patients, and how to be less stigmatizing, how to use people first language, and just stuff like that. And these would be hosted in steakhouses, nice restaurants. They would close out entire restaurants and only serve us free food, take home food. Making sure that, and a lot of the times the audience, were people who, like all the people that if you work in the HIV field or any service field, you know the clientele of people who come there. So the people who may not always have access to a meal, or have certain shelter for a time of the night where they could go there, listen to my story, and get food, and then get food to be taken home. Hi. Okay. So I will tell you a little bit more. Actually, I'm just gonna go ahead and read the story that we put together. So like I said, we put together these cards so that I'm able to share my story. Okay, so I'm just gonna go on with it. Okay. Okay. I'm so nervous. Gotta message you. Thank you. Okay, so the story starts out kind of bluntly, so I'm just gonna go into it and whatever. I was diagnosed with HIV in 2009 at 19 years old, just a few months after coming out as gay. Becoming an adult and finding your place in a grown-up world is difficult for everyone, but these events caused me to become a completely different person than I thought I was going to be, and set me on a journey to become the person that I am today. In the months after my diagnosis, I felt like I had the flu. I had a fever, sore throat. I had hives all over my body. At night, I would sweat profusely. And according to my mom, I was talking in my sleep. I went to an urgent care facility nearby, but they only confirmed what I had already thought. My symptoms were caused by the flu. 3 months passed. If I had the flu, I should have gotten over it by then. I was talking with a friend, and FYI, side note, this friend was my brother's ex-boyfriend and who was my weed dealer. I was talking with a friend who suggested that I get tested for HIV. Even though I didn't believe it was HIV, I went to a different clinic the next morning. I posted a message on social media about being on the way to get tested. In fact, I was so confident that the test would come back negative that I made plans to celebrate after the test. At this clinic, they examined me and did a rapid HIV test. When I first heard that my HIV test came back positive, I thought, this can't be real. I'm only 19. How could I have HIV? I was stunned. Who wouldn't be stunned by that? The clinic asked if there was someone that I could call. They dialed the number, but I was the one who asked my mom to come. She knew as soon as she saw me that it was serious. I don't remember how I told her or even if I said the words, but we hugged and we cried together. The clinic brought in a nurse and a peer counselor who talked about what we could do and where we could go for more information and support. When we finally left the clinic, we did as the counselor suggested, and we drove to an AIDS service organization, also known as an ASO, and I was in a daze, but my mom was right there by my side, holding my hand. For the rest of the day, she never left my side. The ASO gave me several pamphlets and 4 books about HIV and AIDS. After that stop, my mom and I went out to dinner, just the two of us. Even though the ASO assured me that I could live a pretty healthy life with treatment, I still felt like this would be the end. I thought about all the memories that I would never have a chance to make. I wouldn't be able to travel or see my friends or family grow old. I thought about all the family I would be leaving behind, and I was truly devastated. I thought about what my memorial quilt would look like and where my name would be inscribed on a wall after I was dead. Ugh, that's so morbid of me, but at the time, those were really real. And I make reference to an AIDS quilt and what, if someone had to make an AIDS quilt of me, what personal things of mine would they put on there? And, just like the monument here in Los Angeles, that is the Wall Las Memorias, where they do inscribe people's names who have passed from HIV and AIDS related complications. So those were the things that were really in my mind, that those were going to become my realities. I was basing all my conclusions on movies and the small bits of information that I had heard. I had never met anyone with HIV before. I had no frame of reference at all. Society didn't talk about HIV appropriately or adequately. At least not in my experience. In high school, HIV was only a chapter in the health textbook. The information wasn't personal and it didn't stick with me. Although I was rattled and stunned by the diagnosis, I resolved that this was just a bump in the road and it was not going to derail me. I knew that I needed to learn more, but I didn't know if I should disclose to my status to anyone else just yet. Hi. I read what resources I could find at the clinic and the AIDS service organization. I decided not to tell anyone yet. And my mom agreed to not disclose my status to anyone until I was ready. After a few weeks, I told my dad. A little while later, I told my brother when I visited him in California. I didn't want to tell him over the phone. Telling them wasn't easy. I had to make more grown-up decisions, and I can see myself becoming a new person. I hadn't had a primary care doctor since the one who delivered me. And later retired when I was barely a teen. But my mom was right there to help me. We researched doctors together and picked out an HIV/AIDS specialist. My specialist, she was amazing, let me tell you. This was at the El Rio Clinic in Tucson, Arizona. And her name was Dr. Sarah Vasquez. I loved her so much. Okay, again, I'm 19. I'm 30 now, so this was 11 years ago. Okay, she worked with me to get on treatment. She didn't rush me or push one medication over the other. So just another frame of reference, this is early 2010. There was only one a day HIV medication pill at the time, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a tripla, and which a tripla was the first combination HIV pill. So and also at the time, like now, if you get diagnosed now, sometimes they rush you to start treatment within like 72 hours. But back then, when you're starting treatment, they talked a lot about, resistance, and like if you can't mess up your treatment regimen, your routine, you have to take it every day at the same time. I don't know, with or without food. And if you mess up, then something can happen, which is called resistance, where your medications don't work anymore, and blah blah blah. So there was all this fear. So I went from February to June thinking about which medication I was gonna go on, and until I was ready to start. That doesn't really happen now today. They want you to start like that. But I had to make sure that this was something that I was gonna do right, and I was gonna do right for the rest of my life. Okay, done with that side bit. She laid out my options. She told us the pros and cons of each and waited for me to be ready to start treatment. She also worked with my mom and me throughout my care. I could talk to her about anything and everything. When my lab test eventually showed the HIV in my blood was undetectable, I ran out and I got her a card and a small gift as a thank you. She called me later and thanked me personally. I still remember that. I remember I went and I got the card, and then I got her like a gift certificate or a gift card to like go have dinner. And I went and I wrote in the card, and then I went to the clinic and I asked them if they could give it to her. And then later on, I got a text from a number I didn't know, and I wish I had saved that text, but anyway, yeah. That was a really profound moment. I loved her so much. Everything that I had learned told me that it was important to have support within the HIV community. At the time, the only support groups for those living with HIV in my area were geared towards adults. It was great to see so many people living with HIV who were still able to be so active and full of life. My whole outlook on life with HIV changed because of those meetings. I didn't see it as the end, the way I did just after my diagnosis. I found support from many of them. They were mentors and educators for me, and for the HIV positive community in general, and they all became like my brothers and sisters. I listened carefully to their stories, and I took their advice on how to navigate through life. I reached out through social media and found people who were talking and doing things about HIV. But at the support group meetings, I still felt like an outsider. I didn't really feel like I was getting everything that I could from them. Many of the people who attended were dealing with other health issues and lifestyle concerns that did not relate to me. It was open to all, young, older, gay, straight, male, female, etc. I realized how important it is to be inclusive, but with so much diversity, I felt like I couldn't get answers to all of my concerns. Even though I felt like they all accepted me, this feeling of being isolated from the group made me want to do something. Over time, a group of us younger folk, remember I was 19 at the time, most of whom weren't going to any support group, we formed the first youth support group for HIV positive people in the city. The reward I felt from helping establish this group made me want to get more involved in the community. I felt like I was taking charge and doing something. I wanted to continue that feeling. So I started volunteering at the local AIDS Foundation. My friends and family, which was the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation. When we wrote these, they didn't allow us to make any names of things and stuff like that. So I need to, slip that in there. It was the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation and also THON, which were the two organizations that really helped me out during my time of living in Tucson. My friends and family all knew that I was involved, but with the exception of my parents and my brother, they did not know why I was involved. I learned even more about HIV while I was there, and soon I started to educate new members of the community about the virus. Getting involved helped me come to accept my diagnosis. I learned more and saw all the great things that people were doing in person and online. The work was so rewarding that I kept going back day after day, month after month, year after year. After 5 years of volunteering, they offered me a job. I was named head of a social media campaign that focused on eliminating the stigma surrounding HIV testing among the youth. That was called the Life Plus Project at the Southern Arizona AIDS Foundation. And with my very good sister, Miguel, who I love and I miss you so much, but we were both we both have the same last name, and so the plaque on our wall, it said both of our names. We had the same last name, so we were the Moreno sisters. Um, yeah, we went through so much together. Okay. They also granted me the opportunity to conduct many presentations at high schools around town about living with HIV. Maybe by meeting me, the chapter from that health textbook came alive for students. Things were going pretty well for me at this point. I had a job doing something that I was passionate about. I had support from within the HIV community and from my family and friends, though I still had not told most of them about my status. Hey to everyone there. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So the only ones I told, the only people I told were the ones I was dating before things got serious. But I've never had a partner before, so never been in a relationship. But as for my friends and the rest of my family, I thought about telling them many times, but I always found a way to talk myself out of it. Finally, I had an experience that made it all too clear that it was time for me to disclose my status to all the people in my life. Bitch, this was a time. Fuck. Okay. I was doing some work on social media about knowing your status, because I was out there promoting testing, and this was back in the early days of like Facebook. Yeah, we were using Instagram, yeah, but there wasn't this live shit that we're doing now. Okay. So I think I was out at an event. I was out at an event. I think we were at a college, myself and my sister Miguel, and I had posted online, like, it was probably a day that was like, one of those national days, like an awareness day or something like that. And the way that the campaign worked was that we had these papers and it said, what makes my life plus? And then people would write whatever makes their life plus, which was their reason for getting an HIV test. And then we take a picture of them with it, and then we post it on our social media, and then they're able to share it with their social networks as well. So I was doing that, and I had posted a picture, and someone that I had intimate encounters with previously or very recently from that time saw. Okay, back to the story. I was doing some work on social media about knowing your status, and the guy I was interested in saw, and he texted me. We text back and forth, and he asked if I knew my status. I told him yes, that I was HIV positive, and that I was taking medication. He texted me a little later saying that he had rushed to the restroom at work to vomit. That single event made it clear to me why I needed to disclose. I needed to tell all the people in my life. I didn't want to go through this kind of situation again. I didn't want to hide my status or have the people find out unexpectedly. I wanted to tell them on my own terms. At that time, I had been HIV positive for almost 6 years, and my immediate family were the only people outside of the HIV community who knew. My mom had been basically the only person I had confided in for years, but it was time I let the rest of the people in my life in on my status. I know she'll never admit it, but it had to be a burden for her to be my only confidant. Our relationship grew so much because of this, and I wouldn't want to give it up, but I needed to let others know. I felt like I was taking another major step towards becoming the person I was meant to be. So this moment is just coming a little bit full circle because my mom being the only person who knew, who held the secret, who lied to so many people, whenever, because my mom would volunteer at the organizations that I worked at the organizations that I went and received support from. She was always doing things where people were like, where are you? Like my stepdad or my grandparents or anything like that. They would have to ask, she would have to lie to them like, oh, I'm doing something. But she never told them that, we're doing the AIDS walk or, we're doing this monthly luncheon called Pause Cafe where I go and they give us lunch. And then they give us care packages to take home, and my mom would be the one to help set it up and serve food. Sorry. So to so that just brings it full circle that that I brought her with me to go do these talks in front of these people and for her to talk with other parents. Okay. Next page. It's now May of 2015, and the Gay Men's Chorus that I perform with is having their summer concert. This one was themed When I Knew, which told stories of the chorus members through song. No one in my family knew that I was even performing with the Gay Men's Chorus, but I felt like this was the perfect time and way to let my friends and family in on a little tiny secret. I invited everyone who was important to me to the show, and as I peeked and saw some of them in the audience, I was terrified. Yes, no, actually, it wasn't the Gay Men's Chorus of LA, but I am with them. This was Reveille Men's Chorus in Tucson, Arizona. We were so small. GMCLA is like 300 people. We were like 30, 40, and then when I left, they were maybe like 60. So it was a super, super small. And even within that group, I was a part of an 8-member ensemble called Reverb? Was it Reverb? Yes. Okay. So Reveille Men's Chorus in Tucson, Arizona, we're putting on our summer show. These nails, you like that? I just tried to give a little bit of a World AIDS Day homage. I don't know if you could see. Look how fucked up this one got. Okay. So the theme of the Gay Men's Chorus was When I Knew, which told the stories of chorus members through song. No one in my family knew that I had been performing with the Gay Men's Chorus, but I felt like this was the perfect time and way to let my friends and family in on a little secret. I invited everyone who was important to me to the show, and as I peeked, I saw some of them in the audience, and I was terrified. I invited, side note, I sent everyone that I knew a Facebook invite. I told all of my family members on my dad's side, all of my family members on my mom's side, cousins, best friends, coworkers, anyone who was close to me that I had not disclosed to, I invited them all to this show. And I'll be honest, like no one showed up. Yes, the theater was packed, and we're talking theaters in Tucson, so they're very small. They're not like these big theaters here in LA, but they're intimidatingly small. My dad and his girlfriend came. My tia, her husband, my mom, my stepdad, my tia, her husband, and my nana and tata. Those are the only people who came. No friends, no one else. Okay, which, that's neither here nor there. Okay, so the show starts, and within the first 5 minutes, I stood on the stage and I disclosed my status to 300 plus people for 2 nights in a row. I know, I went from not telling anyone to telling hundreds. It sounds a little crazy, but I wanted them all to hear it from me in a context that showed that I was turning all of this into something positive. No pun intended. After the show, my guests greeted me outside the theater with tears in their eyes, big smiles, and open arms. They told me how proud of me they were. What a relief. I still had one more thing that I needed to do though, and that's out myself to everyone who didn't make it to the show. Because that was the point, right? Like, I wanted to tell everyone all at once, and no one fucking came. That was really hard for me because it's like, fuck, how am I going to tell everyone else who didn't show up? So, as the gay men's choruses do, we always record the shows to make sure that we can share with everyone. I posted a video of my performance on social media, and then I got offline. I remember. So at this time, we lived in the mountains. We had no Wi-Fi. So I went to the public library and I got on the computer and I typed out this long statement with a video clip attached to it, and I posted it to my social media, and then I got off. I logged off, and the fact that we didn't have Wi-Fi or anything like that at home was a very big help because I didn't want to get back online and see all the response. I just wanted to post and ghost, and then I didn't know what kind of responses I was gonna get from people. So and at this time I had no fucking phone. I had an Obama phone. It was a phone that was probably about this big, and the screen was probably about this big, and all they could do was these texts that had like limited characters, and I could only send and receive so many a month. So shortly after posting that message, even though I didn't stay logged in to see the comments and responses and messages that I was getting online, I started to get some messages from text from people who actually had my cell phone number, which was not a lot of people. One that was significantly important to me was one of my tios who, as growing up, didn't really, whatever. Things were different, times were different. When I was growing up, I was called all the names, right? I was called a joto and a maricon and a puñal and like all these things, and, was harassed and stuff like that. So getting this text from my uncle telling me that he loves me and supports me was something that I took images. There was no screenshots on this little fucking Obama phone, so I had to get another camera and just make sure that I documented all of these responses that I was getting from people. Another one was from a very good friend of mine who also didn't make it to the show, but texted me and told me how proud they were of me. Whew. Okay, enough of the side remarks, and I'll get back to the story at hand. Then I posted a video of my performance on social media, and then I got offline for a few days because I was so nervous about what people would say or do. I wondered, what would they think of me? Would they treat me different? The response from my family and the community was like nothing I'd ever experienced. The love and support from everyone was almost overpowering. I now truly know what unconditional love feels like. With all the support that I had, and with this relief of no longer feeling like I was lying to my family and friends by not telling them, I felt strong enough to enter the next period of my life. The AIDS Foundation that I was working for didn't have the resources to employ me anymore, so I took the chance I was hired in January on a project that was a 1-year grant, so my last day was December 31st. And I applied for other positions at the organization, but things just didn't fit. And since I lived in such a small town, there weren't so many organizations doing the same kind of work. I wanted to continue this work, and I wanted to see what I could do, where I could go. In that time, in that 1 year, I learned so much. and had gone through a lot of training. So I had a lot of skills that would, and by the way, I'm not a college graduate. I didn't go to college. None of those stuff. I didn't study public health. I don't have a fucking master's in therapy or, public health or nothing like that. But I was still able to work at these places because I had life experience. And experience is something that you will never be able to teach in school, for people who don't have life experience but are acquiring traits to help other people. It's that life experience that I had and that other people have, that sort of allow organizations to bypass those college degree requirements. Okay, so I took a chance and I applied and was hired for a job in Los Angeles as an HIV tester and counselor. No side notes. We're getting too late. Okay. Oh, no. Okay, we have enough time because I'm almost done. So a good friend of mine, who lived here in LA, was like, he worked at the Juan Las Memorias project, and he said, we have an opening, you should apply for this job. And I had just signed a lease in a new apartment. I was 3 months into a new apartment, and I applied to this organization on my 25th birthday in June of 2015. And I had to drive for an interview in August of 2015. So I drove my little car all the way up to Los Angeles all by myself. Where did I stay? I might have stayed with him. I think I did. I did stay with him, because let me tell you what happened. So I went for this interview and everything went great. The interview went awesome. I had actually met these people the year before, at a AIDS conference where all of the organizations from the country come into one spot, and it's an annual conference. So my friend, I had met him in person. He introduced me to all his coworkers. We went out to lunch together, and then afterward we went out to the bars and stuff, like in the night. So I had already met these people. So a year later, I come in and interview at this organization, and the interview went great. They loved everything. They offered me the job, and they were like, how soon can you move? And I was like, fuck, okay. So randomly at the time, my brother was in Los Angeles, and we went out to have lunch because my brother lives in San Diego. So we were both in Los Angeles at the same time. We went to go have lunch at Hamburger Mary's. And then afterward, I was following him somewhere else, and I rear-ended him. I totaled my car, and I was like, fuck, what am I gonna do? I just got this job opportunity here in LA, and I just totaled my car. How am I gonna move here? Anyway, I drove my totaled car. It was totaled cosmetically, but it still worked. So I drove it all the way back to Arizona, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm not moving anymore. But no, I got my shit together. I got a new car. So that was August of 2015, and I moved to LA in September of 2015. So things moved pretty fastly. Okay, back to the story. Okay. I had never lived outside of my hometown, but I packed my things and I moved to LA to start a new life. When I arrived, I was saturated with training on HIV, testing, counseling, and patient care seminars. I met a lot of really great people who were incredibly strong and inspiring. They were dedicated and compassionate allies to the cause. There were people who were older than me, who had been living with the virus for a long time, and there were people who were my own age who were putting themselves out there into the world. I reached new milestones in Los Angeles, and as an HIV tester, having to deliver my first HIV positive test result was inevitable. I just try to make sure that everyone I work with gets linked up with stigma-free care and support. By doing this, I knew I was serving my purpose. Okay, we're on the last page, so I can give you another side note. I remember giving my very first positive result and how fucking hard that was for me. It was at Midtown Spa. It's a bathhouse in Los Angeles, and I had been HIV testing for a while by that point, and I tested this guy and he only spoke Spanish, so we're there doing the test in Spanish. He was visiting from Colombia, and was at the bathhouse in LA. And so it was my very first positive test result, and I remember how much that impacted me, because I was brought back to a moment where I had received my positive test result. I remembered how that felt, and having to deliver that result to this person who was only there visiting, who later on down the line I had to make sure that we stayed in contact. I gave him information about an AHF that was in Colombia. But so that was a moment, and I remember, it was late at night, and once you're done doing the HIV tests at the bathhouse, you have to go and take the stuff back to the organization and drop off all the materials and supplies in the middle of the night. I remember my coworker, shout out to Joanna. I told her, I was like, I got my first reactive today, and we were at the printer. She was making copies of something, and she was like, "Oh, how do you feel?" And she was like, "How do you feel?" And I just remember we hugged, and I cried a little bit, because it was really a hard day for me. And not to make that whole moment about me, this person who would just find out their status, and we did everything we could to help them because they were a visitor and they had to, take that news back. So, that was a few years ago, and I hope that person is doing well. And needless to say, since then, I would continue to be an HIV tester and giving positive results to people. And that was my first, and it wasn't going to be my last. So, and you can imagine, as someone who's gone through that experience of receiving a positive test result, how it feels to have to be put back in those shoes in those moments every time you get a positive test result. So, I guess it got easier as time went on, but back to the story. This is the last page. HIV has become such a driving force in my life to motivate me to accomplish my goals, to contribute my voice to the cause, and to diminish the power of stigma. Coming to peace with my status made me a better listener, more empathetic, and more willing and capable of helping people that I counsel. When I was diagnosed, I was just becoming an adult, but the diagnosis turned me into the adult that I am today. Thank you. So this was from 2017. And so much has happened since then. I mean, I've worked for like 4 or 5 different HIV organizations here in Los Angeles. I'm currently, am I allowed to say? Anyway, I work for Children's Hospital now in the adolescent medicine division, doing an empowerment program for folks who are living with HIV, which is really awesome, and I love it. Yeah, I mean, this was the greatest thing. All of that culminated into, all of these experiences that I had that were in the story culminated to me meeting someone who was like, "You have a great story, and I want you to go across the country and share it." Like I said before, the entire year that I got to do that, I always remembered where I was from. I always remembered the people who I started in these support groups out with. I always carried them with me because they helped me get through everything. Every time the scouts would ask me, because they kind of would ask like, "So do you know any people who are like you but not you, because we can't use you for everything? So do you have friends who have similar stories?" I always took it back to the people who lived in my hometown. I always took it back to people who had different experiences than mine, because they were the ones who needed to share theirs. And after so long, I was like, fuck, like I'm so over telling my story. Like someone else needs to share theirs. Mine, honestly, had a lot of privilege in it. I was accepted by my family. I had a lot of support. There was so many worse things that could have happened to me. So I had such a privilege experience with my HIV diagnosis and with my coming out and where I am today that I'm like kind of over telling my story, and I just want and have tried to be someone who amplifies other people's stories, because those are the the ones that matter the most. Um, So I always keep my hometown of Tucson in my heart and close to me. All the people there who were in the Change Later support group. I'm always out here repping for y'all and always keep you in my heart. Since then, I have been doing so many more amazing things. So I worked with ViiV. I got in contact with the Gran Varones project where I met more people. I got in touch with Youth Across Borders, who took me to Honduras to speak to youth who are living with HIV. And, you know, I don't know, it's going to cut me off soon. So this has been hi to everyone who's waving. This journey so far is has been great, and I didn't know all of this was gonna happen, but I just had to roll with it. And every time I was in a plane, I just looked out the window and reflected on life and looked up at the clouds and was thankful for how good everything was going for me. I was thankful for all the places that these companies sent me, places I'd never been before. I've never been to New York. I got to go to New York on World AIDS Day and experience a World AIDS Day in New York at the New York AIDS Memorial. I walked in the procession with my mom and my brother. Things that like I never would have thought when I was first diagnosed that I would be so open and out about. I was so timid and scared, and then here I was going from city to city, uh, spilling my guts out, and you know that was 2017, and it was amazing. And now I just sort of sit in an office. I sit in my office and I talk to screens all day because of COVID, but I love working with the youth and the other people that I come in contact with. Now the program that I'm running now, I'm co-facilitating now because I have a wonderful co-facilitator. We get to see folks who are not out about their status at all. And we get to teach them a little bit about HIV history and some of the people who are well known, and they lived their lives. And we get to tell people like, look, I've been doing this and living with this for this long, and here's where I'm at with it, and you can get there someday too. So that's just really what it's all about. And even though things are super low key right now, I always have these things to remember and look back on, and just be thankful for everything. Yeah. So it's gonna cut me off in a few minutes, but if there's anyone in here, thank you to everyone who stuck around. But if there's anyone has any questions or anything like that, show us those nails. These were super quick, little tribute to World AIDS Day. I tried to put some glitter over these ones, but they just obscured the ribbon. I don't know if you could see. But the other part about getting sent to all these cities is that I always went out. Always. When I was in New York, I went out and I went to all the bars. When I was in Vegas, they sent me to Vegas. Shit, I was like, I was doing the most, and that was another really fun part about it. Also, when I was in New York, I went to, like I said, the World AIDS Day processions. I went to the LGBT Center. Every city that I went to, I looked up HIV AIDS landmarks, I guess you could say, and I went and I visited all of them. I went and I was able to see original Keith Haring artworks. I went to the LGBT centers that were there in all the cities, just to see like what was going on there. How are they conducting their services and stuff like that. So it was, I don't know. Does anyone have any questions? Or where did you get your hat? I got this at Urban Outfitters like 2 years ago. Yeah, I don't know if they sell it anymore, but it is a Keith Haring. This shirt is Every Day is World AIDS Day from MAC Cosmetics. I got this shirt from the commission. So if wherever you are, get involved with your local HIV/AIDS organizations. If you can, do an AIDS walk. On days like this or any other National HIV/AIDS Awareness Day, post something so that followers in your life, so that the followers in your life know that you're a supporter of people who are living with HIVs. That way, maybe someone might come out to you, someone might reach out to you for support and just be there as a friend or a family member to just listen if they have stuff to talk to you about. So I'm just gonna babble on until it cuts me off, which is just in a few more minutes. But thank you to everyone who listened to this entire thing. I'm gonna see if I can post it here. Get involved with your local commissions, get involved with local everything. If you can, as either someone who is accessing preventative services or as a consumer, especially if you're a consumer, because all of these places need you. You're welcome. All of these places need your voice to be present at the table so that decisions can be made. I miss you too, Patrick. Yeah, they get their water for sure. They're thirsty, but they get some droplets. Yes, but get involved in any way you can, and sometimes it is time consuming. But even though feeling fulfilled isn't the goal, it is something that happens once you are doing work. That's just something that comes naturally with it. So thank you to ViiV for doing this with me. All right, I have 2 minutes left officially. So at from 6 to 7:30, make sure you go and watch the Wall Las Memorias is having a World AIDS Day live stream. Sign up and register to go watch it today, 6 to 7:30. Right after that at 7:30, I'm coming back on live and we're gonna do the history of HIV and AIDS through music on vinyl records. So I'm gonna be talking about certain artists and playing some music from my personal collection and things that I have been collecting for my entire life. I'm super excited about that. I'm so mad that my other page is banned from doing live. That close friends thing got me in a lot of trouble. Anyway, thank you for your wonderful comments. I appreciate them dearly. But I will be back at 7:30, and make sure you just are always supporting in any way that you can. Sorry to everyone who's joined, because this is ending in 30 seconds. Anyway, blessed World AIDS Day to all of you out there, and we will talk soon, okay? Bye.